www.offthecorner.net. You are watching the Fact Project here on Full Blast Radio. FACT is an acronym that stands for Fundamental African Centered Thought. We try to convey some thoughts and some information to members of our community here on the Fact Project. Today we have with us a very special guest, Brother Eric J., hip-hop pioneer, in my humble opinion. Eric J. has been around hip-hop in the industry for a very long time. And so we're going to try to see if we can pick his brain and see what information we can get. Peace and power, Brother Eric J. Thank you for joining us on the Fact Project today, brother.
Peace to you, man. It's good to see you again. It's been a minute. Peace to the family. Peace to my main man, Waverly. He's tuning in.
I appreciate the kind words, brother. So the first question said, what was your introduction to Black consciousness? Because you've been a conscious artist since you've been an artist, going way back. So what was your introduction into Black consciousness?
Well, I was born in 1964. And, Malcolm was still alive at that time. And Martin Luther King was still around at that time. And a lot of others were still here. Even though I was a baby in 64, I was born into that whole atmosphere, man. So, as I grew, everybody around me, Black people really stuck together in those days. We did everything together. We had everybody I knew had each other's back if there was any kind of problem, anything like that. And that was just my vibe the whole time. That's the way I was raised, to be aware of who I was. And where I come from, what my people are about. I had a lot of good examples coming up, my father, my uncles, all these guys put in work, man. And, and they were very, down to earth Black men. And, they instilled that in me growing up. So it just carried over to the music. Because, when I seen what Chuck D was doing and the X-Clan was doing, I was like, now this is what you're supposed to be using, rhyming for. The party and all that stuff is good. But, you're supposed to be talking to your people too, man, and try to, get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say that it starts at home. I said in my book, the disintegration of the Black community begins with the disintegration of the Black family.
Yes.
The Black community is in disarray because the Black family is in disarray. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and it's not an accident that the Black family is in disarray. That's by design. This just didn't happen. It just, one day fathers just didn't decide, I'm not going to take care of my children. They made it, impossible for a lot of brothers to stay at home and raise their kids. And, and they made it easier for the woman to be by herself to raise her kids without the man, and it's devastated our community.
Absolutely. That is definitely systemic. I agree with that. You mentioned X-Clan and Public Enemy. They came along in the later 80s.
Yes.
And you put out a record in 83 conveying Black consciousness and talking even about reparations, which is a hot issue now. What can you tell us about that record?
Well, I was just speaking my mind, man. That's the kind of things that flow through my mind. I'm always thinking about, moving forward. And, and I hate to see Black people in the shape that, we are today, man. When you look at the youngins and how they carry on when they out there solo, and it's like, wow, man, you're a lot better than this. You should be doing something better with yourself. So even back then, I felt the same way, so that I put it on wax.
Nice. Yeah, you talked about reparation in 83. I didn't even understand what that was at the time. So you were way ahead of the game. Now, you mentioned being born in 64.
Right.
And we're talking about hip hop culture. You talked to me about the origin of the term hip hop and said that came from Keith Cowboy of the Furious Five. Can you explain that?
Yeah, because for what I understand was Cowboy was Furious was doing a party one night, and one of Cowboy's fellas was going into the service the next day. So when you're he's on the mic and he's snapping on his man, he's like, yo, you going into the army, or whatever, you're gonna be waking up early in the morning going hip hop, hip Talk about the cadence as they march. And
Okay.
that kind of and that like kind of just caught on because he did it. Cowboy was a man with that voice, man. He was one of my favorite MCs. Just his voice and his flow. He was flawless on the microphone. He just became part of the beat as he
Yeah.
rhymed.
Yeah.
So, using that term hip hop the way he did, it just caught on with everybody else. That was ground zero for hip hop. So it just exploded and went on from there.
Now, you're a lot younger at the time. Did you have an opportunity to go to some of those classic parties that we talk about now?
Yeah, I started going to parties. As a kid, we had block parties in the projects where I grew up, and and the first time I actually saw a DJ with two turntables, wasn't no MCs involved at the time. It was just the guys coming outside and play. It was in 1975. They set up and played behind my building in the basketball court. And that was like a summertime thing. So, everybody in the project came to hear the dudes play, and everybody's out there dancing and whatnot. It was a party. But then we left the projects in 76 and moved to Mount Vernon. And I didn't think anybody was, doing that kind of DJing outside of my projects, because the only place I ever seen anybody DJ like that outside in the street was in Bed-Stuy. My grandfather lived in Bed-Stuy, and we used to go, as little kids, we used to go over there in the 60s and the 70s. And, a couple times we come outside and there'd be a DJ out there rocking in the parking lot right in front of his building. And, that was the first time I ever seen a guy using a telephone headset as his headphones, to do his cueing and mixing with. He was using a telephone headset. That was out in Brooklyn. But, they were playing like, I definitely remember them playing Love Is the Message. That was the jam that they was rocking out there. And then when we got back to the projects, the DJs in our neighborhood was playing a lot of James Brown and Jimmy Castor, and Sly and Family Stone and that kind of stuff. And so we left the projects in 76 and moved to Mount Vernon. And I didn't think anybody was really doing that kind of style of playing music in the street like that. And then, because it was Westchester County, it wasn't the Bronx no more. And then when I was in 9th grade, I went to a basketball game at Mount Vernon High School. And after the game, everybody was going to the cafeteria. And I was like, what's going on? And they was like, yo, they're having a party. So I called my mother on the phone in the lobby, had pay phones. I said, Mark, I stay for the party? She was like, yeah, just be home by midnight. I was like, cool. So I go into the cafeteria, and everybody's dancing, doing the freak and the spank. And everybody's sweating. It was hot as hell in there. And right down front, they had some tables blocking off the DJs. And these guys was cutting beats, man. It was the Collins brothers, Mark Collins and his brother Jazzy J Collins. And they had 3 MCs, Wayne Will, Papa Do Jam, and Kenny J. And them cats was rocking, man. And but right then and there, I said, yo, I'm gonna do this now. So that's what, that was like my real interest into seeing guys DJing with breaks and using MCs. So that was the moment for me.
Oh wow! And what year was that?
That was 1978. That was November of 1978.
Oh wow! So you going back? Wow.
Yeah.
And so you were surprised that hip hop had filtered out of the Bronx and went a little further north. This was all a shock to you.
Yeah, it was a shock to me. But then I found out that the Collins brothers played a lot in the Bronx too. They just lived in Mount Vernon, and they was doing parties from Harlem, because I know they used to play the Renaissance Ballroom, and they would play in the Bronx, and they would play New Rochelle, Mamaroneck, Tuckahoe, all them towns going all the way up to Stamford, Connecticut. That was their territory. Them cats they covered a lot of territory, and they brought hip hop to a lot of people.
Wow. And so you're seeing the culture now. You were there seeing it grow. You're watching this grow right in front of you. Did you think it would evolve into what it became, like this worldwide thing?
Well, that first night, I kind of had the feeling. As I was walking through the party, I was saying to myself, I said, man, white people ever see this, man, they gonna be talking about this like jazz. I can see it, that night, that very first night, because I knew what it was what it could be. I knew what it could be, and I seen it develop because when we were going to those parties in the early days, there wasn't no rap records out like that. It wasn't no Sugar Hill Gang or nothing like that. And we saw King Tim the Third come out, and we was like, wow, man, how did the Fatback Band do a record like this?
Wow.
And then the Sugar Hill Gang came out right after that, and everybody was like, yo, who the hell are these guys, man? It's like we never seen them rock a party or nothing like that. Then to find out that was Kaz and them, man. And how he passed on his rhyme books and all of that. So then it made sense. So then it made sense after that.
Yeah, Jux888 in the chat is talking about the Remington Boys and Club New Rochelle. You know about that?
Yeah, I definitely know about the Remington Boys Club because I seen the Chiba Crew rock there, and the Chiba Crew was ridiculous, man. They had a DJ named Kenny Ken, the Mixgician, and he was just as dope as Theodore. And who else? We seen battle. We seen a battle there, man. The Collins brothers battled the CB Crew. That night was crazy up in there. And we seen DST played there. We seen DST play there. I played there with my man Earl Ski, and we had Bambaataa and them special guests, and my man Buddha Banger, and who else? Oh man, who else played there? DST, the Breakout Crew. I remember helping the Breakout Crew bring the equipment into Remington Boys Club. So
wow.
that was like in 79, 80. That's the years that Remington was going on.
Yeah. Now you mentioned DST. That is the Grand Mixer DST from Edenwald Projects. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, that's going back. Now I've been doing FM radio since 1992. And my job was to interview a lot of the veteran rap artists and MCs. And a lot of the old school guys, they said, back when the era you're talking about, when it was parties, when Kool Herc did a party, you had to be there. Like everybody wanted to go to a Kool Herc party. Right. Did you have the good fortune to go to a Kool Herc party?
No, because I didn't even hear about Kool Herc till 1978. That's when I started hearing Herc's name. Because before that, on my side of the Bronx, we had the DJs from the Black Spades playing. And so, we really didn't know about anybody outside of our side of town. And, and them cats started spinning in Bronxdale in 1971. And, so, well, I didn't hear of Herc till I started, going after the Collins brothers and DST. One of DST's MCs, one of my best friends, the Flyest Boo Ski. That's my main man. And he's one of the few Puerto Ricans that was around at that time back in the days. He used to break with the Zulu King. So, so Boo Ski goes all the way, way, way back to the beginning too.
Yeah, the Jux888 in the chat said Mount Vernon was so hot it didn't make sense to travel and go outside of Mount Vernon. The party scene was that hot in Mount Vernon at the time?
It sure was, because not only did we have the Collins brothers, we had DJ Blade with his crew, we had the CB crew. Well, the CB crew started in the guy who started the CB crew was from Mount Vernon, but most of the guys from the CB crew was from Edenwald. That's how DST started coming up, because he was hanging. DST said he wanted to be down with the Collins brothers, so he hung out with them, and City Boy had the CB crew going on with Malibu, Tricky T, Harry O, and Rob Ski. That was the MCs. And the DJs was Love Squig and Turtle Dove. And, these guys do parties every weekend. And we had also, besides Collins Brothers, CB crew, we had the Breakout Crew. We had, my crew was like kind of underneath the Breakout Crew. Because one of my DJ partner, he was cousins with K.O. Rock and Zulo. And that was the main guys from Breakout Crew. So, we kind of combined with them. And there was another DJ named DJ New Rock. He was ridiculous on the wheel. I mean, this dude used to rock parties by himself. And then he would just leave the microphone out there for somebody can MC, he would let you get on the mic and rock at his party. He let me get out on his system.
Interesting. Jux 888 in the chat is talking about KO Rock. You familiar with KO Rock?
Very familiar with KO Rock because my best friend was part of the Zulu of the breakout crew. His name was Mr. Mean, my man Gene, and him and KO and KO's brother Renzo, and they had this guy named Sly Rock, another brother named Blair, and Kid Dust was down with them as an MC. But breakout crew, when they wasn't doing parties, they was funny because they used to go to other people's parties, and at the end of the party, they would yell "breakout," and they would just start fighting with everybody and breaking up the equipment and stuff like that. They was something else, man. And they had that reputation.
Wow, that's crazy.
All the way from Mount Vernon to Stamford, Connecticut. My man told me, he said, one time they was in Mamaroneck and they yelled "breakout," and they started fighting. And they jumped, and KO jumped on the dude's turntables and started doing like the twist on my man's turntables, and it was hitting people with mic stands and kicking in speakers and stuff. Breakout was kind of ill, but then they had their DJ side too, and they used to rock parties. And KO had the crazy big system, and he had a big trunk full of records, and he used to bring the trunk in, open up the trunk, and they had all their bricks laid out in the trunk, man. They was bad.
Wow. Now, Jux 888 is also mentioned in the CB crew, Bongo Rock, Russie B, Kid Dust, and aka Arthur 4X.
Right.
Are those names familiar to you?
Yes, brother Arthur 4X, brother Arthur, and he used to call himself the ever-loving Kid Dust. I met him at the first DJ practice I ever went to. My boy took me. He was in the crew as an MC. This was like '78, and they were practicing with in an apartment up in the plaza in Mount Vernon. And I knew their DJ because we went to school together. His name was John Lewis. He used to call himself Jazzy Lou, and that's where I met Dust, because Dust was one of the MCs. But that crew didn't stay together too long. And after they broke up, Dust went to the breakout crew, and he was MCing for them. And Dust was with them for a long time. And the other crew, the Rockmasters crew, was DJ Bingo Rock, and Russie B. Russie B was his cousin. And Russie B was their main MC. And Bingo Rock was the man on the turntables. The matter of fact, DST mentioned him in a couple of articles, and nobody ever talks about Bingo. But Bingo was really nasty on the wheels. He had a crazy collection of records. They had a dope system and everything. And I did a party with Bingo in my house in the living room. We used to throw parties in my mother's house in the living room and pack it out. And we had a system in there. And we were rocking like we was at the boys club or something right there in my mom's crib.
Wow, nice. And you started DJing yourself at some point. How did you get into the world of DJing yourself?
Well, I got into because when I saw the DJs when I was a kid, I really didn't think about DJing because I looked at it. The guys were older than me because I was like 8, 9 years old, whatever. And then we used to go to the block parties in the project. All the dudes was teenagers. They was like 16, 17, and whatnot. And they were the ones playing the music. So at that age, I didn't think about it. But after I went to that Collins Brothers party at Mount Vernon High School, I definitely wanted to do it. So the next night I was in my basement, man, with one turntable, trying to work out stuff, with the volume knob.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah. And then
go ahead.
Yeah, then I hooked up with my man Danny McQueen. He was with Breakout Crew. And me and him became friends. And when we found out that we both wanted to DJ, since we didn't have equipment, he had back in the day, everybody used to have stereos with a receiver and a turntable on top, and maybe a cassette deck on the side. So he would bring his over to my mom's crib, and we had one too. So we would put them side by side, and when we would play the records, we would turn the volume up on the left side, and put the headphone jack in the other stereo and cue up the record like that, and then we do the cut by switching volumes, and that's how we learned how to DJ.
Wow, wow, on the fly. I like that.
Yeah, and then that year his mother bought him some turntables and a mixer for Christmas, and we already knew what to do. Once we had the real deal, we was cutting we was cutting for like 9 hours a day, just practicing every day.
You got real turntables. It was on and popping then, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Now, I think it was Jux 888 in the chat mentioned that DST was involved with Heavy D Day yesterday. Did you hear about this?
Yeah. I couldn't make it because I had to work, but they had Heavy D Day in Mount Vernon, in front of the Dole Center, and they DST used his sound system, and they had my man DJ Kev Rockwell was spinning, and I even seen the clip. DST was up there doing some floor work, breaking. I was like, oh, look at this dude.
No way. I'm surprised because he's a pretty straightforward, serious dude in terms of personality. So if he's breaking, that's another level.
Yeah, because Mount Vernon is like a second home to him, man. So, because I remember going to see DST do a party in Mount Vernon at the Wheelers Club, like around 1981. And I called him the ultimate B-boy that night because when we got there, he's on the turntables, he's cutting records, he's killing it on the turntables. Nobody was really on his level. And then he got on the microphone and he just ripped it on the mic. And I was like, damn, I don't think there's too many MCs in the house tonight that could really deal with DST. Then he puts the mic down and goes out on the dance floor and started breaking. And nobody could outdance him. I was like, yo, he does everything.
That's funny. That's amazing. Now, they in the chat, of course, mentioned Heavy D, and you talking about it now, Heavy D Day. You had opportunity to rub elbows with a lot of people in Mount Vernon, and Heavy D was one of them. What can you tell us about Heavy D?
Well, because I knew his older brothers. I met his older brothers before I met him, because he was a youngster. And when I finally did meet him, we used to look at him like the big, fat, goofy kid on the block, because, he just be out there goofing off in the street and whatnot. And I did a party for my sister's birthday. I think it was December of '78, and she was, he was more of her age, so she invited him to the party, and she had all her friends there, and me and my man Danny was DJing, and and Hev was chasing, following her all around the house trying to rap to her, and my sister was like, yo, Eric, can you tell this guy, stop following me? He keeps looking at me with that eye, because he had a glass eye, so we knew him as a little kid, and then I said like a year or so after that, his brother Floyd had a crew with another DJ called DJ Speed. That was Gary Dixon, and Gary Dixon was Troy's older brother, Trouble T. Roy, and Gary and Floyd was my age. We all went to school together and stuff, and they had four MCs, and when they used to do parties, they would have the DJs up top. And then they would list the MCs, and Heavy D would be at the bottom, because the other MCs in the crew was better than him at that time, and he had like basically just one rhyme about it was a cool rhyme. It was about like the Wizard of Oz, about him walking down the yellow brick road and meeting people at as he was going. It was slick, and that's how I met him. He was a young kid, and he wanted to be an MC. Starting out, I remember him.
Yeah, I heard you talk about Heavy D years ago, because I had you on another program, and you said Heavy D was a good kid. I thought that was, funny, because, Heavy D is more like my age, so I wouldn't see him as a kid, you know what I mean? I would see him as like my peer, So for an older cat to be able to say Heavy D was a good kid, that kind of, that was, surprise for me to hear that. You mentioned Trouble T. Roy. Did you know him as well?
Yeah, I knew him. Yeah, I knew Troy, because Troy was another one of the young boys that used to be on our block. He used to follow behind us. And, at that time, he used to wear, he wanted to be a B-boy too. So he had a sweatshirt, and his nickname was Cheese Boy back in those days. And, he used to do his little thing. And he's another one that used to be chasing after my sisters, because, everybody thought my sisters was fine. Yeah, I know they good looking girls, but all the guys in the neighborhood, they used to try to rap to my sisters and whatnot. And I remember Troy from them days. And and I was surprised that when they finally got their group together to see him and Glenn dance. I knew Glenn too. So I was that was cool that because I think Hev probably was the first one to have dancers like that behind him while he was rhyming, doing his thing. He was, that was the innovation at that time because nobody was doing it. I think after him, Big Daddy Kane came out, and he had Scoop and Scrap, and then Chubb Rock had Hot Dog dancing. So Hev started like he started the trend when he did that.
I think Heavy D might have been second because Houdini had UTFO behind him a few years previous.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, now you talk about Houdini. Yeah, Dig. They did that too.
Yeah. So you talked about learning how to DJ with one single turntable until you got real equipment.
Yeah,
Now, everybody knows about the legendary Pete Rock, and he just did an album produced by produced by himself, but he did an album with Common. And you taught Pete Rock how to DJ. Tell us
yeah.
that story.
Well, Pete, when he first started coming to me, my man, he's no longer with me anymore. Rest in peace to my man Tyrone Gallimore. We used to call him T-Bone back in the day. He was real strong in the street. And he comes by my house one day and he said, "Yo, man, this kid wants to meet you, man." And and I was in my room chilling. He comes in the room and he brings Pete in. He comes in with this big cheesy smile. It's like, "Yo, man, I always wanted to meet you, man. I heard about you DJ and this and that, and blah, blah, blah." And since he was a young kid, you can't, being having the teacher side of myself, I couldn't turn him down. I was like, "Yo, man, what's up? What can you do on the turntables?" So he had a bag of records, and he put a couple joints on, and he couldn't, he wasn't cutting and scratching at that time. He could just blend, but but his blends was like perfect. I was like, wow, he's really got an ear for this. So I was like, yo, cool. So I got on the turntables. I started cutting stuff up, and he's sitting there watching it and watching. Then then he started coming around like every day. Like I'll be coming home from work, and he'd be sitting on the steps in front of my crib, and I come down the block, and he's like, "Hey!" And I'm like, "Oh man, I can't believe this guy's here already, man." Like, I was gonna come home and sit down, and I come in and cut the equipment on, and we make tapes and stuff like that. And, and there'd be days that I'd be like taking a nap, and and at that time when I lived at my mother's house, I was on the first floor. So he would come on around the side of the house and knock on my window from the backyard. I was like, this dude.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Now
he
he's a teenager at this point, or he's younger than that?
Nah, he was like maybe 10, maybe 11 years old.
Wow. So he's a little kid at this point.
Yeah. And I was like 19, 20 years old at that time.
Wow. So now I saw an interview with Pete Rock, because you told me this years ago that you taught Pete Rock how to DJ. I saw an interview with Pete Rock, and it's on YouTube. And he said that Eric J taught him how to DJ. He said this in interviews.
Yeah.
So it's the real deal, because he said it himself. Now, you saw Pete Rock evolve from a kid that's sitting on your steps waiting to use your equipment when you get home from work to where he is now. What's that like for you to see him go from that place to where he is now?
That's what it's supposed to be, man, because we the funk, man. I'm not surprised one bit, because we would, my whole thing was just keeping it funky, man. And, Pete picked up on that. And, you see how hip hop is, man. There's only a certain amount of cats that really got the funk, man. And, Pete's one of them. Like DJ Premier's another one. Dr. Dre too, there's only a certain amount of cats that really got that funk. And that's where we came from. I grew up around the funk. So I know, that it just runs through my blood like it's DNA,
Yeah. Now, if you spent time around Pete Rock, then I would assume you have to have met CL Smooth too, right?
Yeah, I met him in Pete's basement one day. I stopped by his crib, and they were downstairs working on something, and I heard him rhyme, and I was like, wow, because I was doing beats at my house as well, but I didn't have the MCs to go down on my beats. I told CL, I was like, yo, man, if I had an MC like you, I'd blow up too.
Yeah.
But then, later on, I started hooking up with guys, and we were doing some good work too, man. But we never got any like national recognition like that, But it's all good because I'm just interested in being funky, man. The real ones know.
Yeah. So now, you taught Pete Rock, and he became a big producer. And you mentioned Heavy D as well. Heavy D, Blue Funk, I believe it was his third album.
Yeah.
That was produced by Tony Dofat, and he disappeared. Is he from Mount Vernon also?
Yeah, he's another brother from Mount Vernon. I remember him. I think from like junior high school, because I was taking music lessons. You know, this is even before I started DJing. I was taking trumpet lessons, and I think he was a horn player as well in another class. I'm not sure if he played the trombone or something like that. You know, but you know, he wasn't somebody that I hung out with or really was in our circles or nothing like that. So I didn't really know much about him, but I knew of him. Like
Okay.
same thing with like Dave Hall that does production. You know, I remember Dave too as a little kid running behind us because his older brother Ivo was one of the MCs in my group.
You talking about Dave Jam Hall?
Yeah. His older brother Ivo was one of the MCs in my group for a while.
Okay.
And that's how I remember him. That's my little brother, David over there. And he'd be running around doing little kid stuff. I didn't even know he was into music until I started seeing credits on record. I was like, Dave Hall. I was like, that can't be Dave Ivor's brother.
Yeah. Didn't he start a label? I think he got major distribution, if I remember right.
Yeah. I really don't know much about his business dealings and about much of what he's done, but I was surprised that Dave was even involved in music because I remember him just as Ivor's little brother. There was three of them. There was Wayne, Ivor, and David. And and David was the little kid that didn't come out the house that much. When Ivor was one of my MCs.
Yeah. Now, did Tony Dofat spend time around Pete Rock? Because that's the only other producer that I heard that could sound exactly like Pete Rock. And I don't know if it's Pete Rock or Tony Dofat. Did he spend time around Pete Rock? Do you know?
I really don't know. Because because once Heaven and them start touring and all that, I didn't see them cast that much anymore. I was a grown man doing my thing, working. And I always worked in Manhattan, so I wasn't even around Mount Vernon while they were doing their glory days stuff. That's what I'm saying. Like when I used to come home from, I would be coming all the way home from the South Bronx, and people would be sitting out in front of my house as a kid.
Yeah. Now we had Whiz the La Kid in the chat said this is the first time he heard somebody talk about Trouble T-Roy, and it didn't give him that sad feeling. So you bring in that energy.
Yeah, because Troy was a good kid, man. It really broke my heart when he passed on, man. Because that he was very young when that happened. He wasn't that old, man. He was just a young man. And I just heard Chuck D speaking on that the day that it happened. Chuck said they was on tour, and whoever was running the tour approached Chuck and told him, said, "Yo, you like the oldest. You gotta like set the example and like keep these guys in control. They can't be horsing around like this." And he said, Chuck said he always tried to do that, but he said after a while it got to the point where it's like, these guys gonna do what they're gonna do. And he said the same day he started, falling back is the day that they had the accident where Troy died.
Wow.
Yeah. I went to Troy's wake, man. That was tough, man. That was tough.
Okay.
And I didn't go to the funeral, but I went to Gary's house after the services for the repast. There was a lot of people there. I stayed for a little bit, paid my respects to the family. Because, I knew Gary since junior high school. His older brother, Gary, was one of the first people I met when I moved to Mount Vernon, because we all used to take the same school bus to school together. It was like about 25 of us little knuckleheads, used to ride the bus and goof off in the morning, So I knew Gary for a long time, and I knew his brother Troy, that was heartbreaking when he passed. But I remember the good times with Troy because he was a fun-loving guy, man. I never seen Troy like angry. I always remember Troy smiling and laughing and joking around. He was one of them kind of guys.
Now, see how Smooth said he met Trouble T-Roy fighting in the street. Did they fight in the street, or was that just a lyric?
Well, I've heard bits and pieces of that story, but I really don't know too much about that. Because that was they crews doing their thing. I wasn't involved with them cats.
Yeah, Jux 888 in the chat says talk about the mural of them at Lorraine Park East.
Yeah, there's a a park in my old neighborhood called Lorraine Park, and it was right across the street from my man Danny's building. And we used to do block parties in there. I did a block party in there with Hev's brother Floyd. You know, Floyd had he had some speakers that he built. You know, because we used to all build our own speakers at that time. You know, we used to build our cabinets and get the woofers and stuff and put them in there and all of that. And Floyd had about 4 speakers that he brung out and an amp. And me and Danny came out with our records, and we were taking turns DJing in that park. And matter of fact, the cops came by and they arrested Floyd. And they told us, they said, yo, if this equipment is still here, when we get back, we're going to confiscate everything. So we carried all them speakers to my house and put them in the garage.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, that park has history with hip hop. And they, since, Dwight Myers and all them guys from the neighborhood, somebody did a nice mural as a tribute to them.
Yeah. And Dwight is Heavy D for those that might get lost there. Now, you mentioned Floyd, Heavy D's brother. Floyd was his personal manager. Is that correct?
I really don't know too much about their dealings, because once they started doing their thing, I was concentrating on my thing, So I really don't know what their business was about. I knew Floyd was with them all the time, so he might have been his manager, but I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. I thought this was amazing. You invited me to your home years ago, and I came through, and we were standing there talking. And I saw Tila Rock behind you over your shoulder.
Yeah.
And we're talking mid-sentence. I said, wait a minute, is that Tila Rock right there? And you say, yeah, you want to meet him? And then you brought me over to Tila Rock, introduced us, and we had an interesting discussion for an hour and some change, maybe. I wish I had that discussion and conversation on video. How did you come to meet Tila Rock, of all people, originally?
Well, I met him through my man Waverly. Waverly ran into Tila Rock on 125th Street one day. And then they hooked up like that, and then Waverly introduced me to T, and me and we all been boys ever since, man. I talked to him last night, matter of fact.
Wow.
And of course, he was asking about some videos.
Wow, that's amazing. So now, when you met him, was this around It's Yours, or was this after that?
Oh, this was after that. Because I remember when It's Yours came out, that was like the first record that I really heard an 808 used like an 808 should be used, and it's funny because Bam and them used it on Planet Rock, but it didn't sound like the way the 808 used to sound in Bronx River when Bam used to rock through the system. Tila Rock's record sounded like what you would hear when you go to Bronx River and Bam's rocking the 808. So I was like, yeah. And then, then his rhyming and his wordplay and everything, man, his pen game is crazy. That record was off the chain.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only hot record he had. He had another record, I believe it was 85, called Breakdown on Sleeping Bag Records. You remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that one too. I think I got that somewhere in the crates.
Yeah, that was in the same vein as It's Yours. For the people that don't know, if you can go and search Tila Rock, TLAROCK, It's Yours, and Tila Rock Breakdown. Those are classics from Tila Rock. Like, that's his style, I know many years later he had did some work with Curtis Mantronic.
I remember Mantronics. I used to do work with him too.
Okay, really, I didn't know that. What did you do with Curtis Mantronic?
Well, there was a studio on what street was that? It was right off of Houston Street on Broadway. It was called The Box, and we used to all be up in there together. Me and all my fellas from East New York, because I was running with a lot of guys from Brooklyn at that time, and we were doing house music and hip hop records together up there. And Mantronics used to be up there cutting tracks as well. So we was all hanging up in there. And the Source magazine had their office one floor down from us.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was a lot popping in that building, and that was in the early '90s too, man. I mean, what's his name? The guitar player used to use it to rehearse. The guy that used to be on David Sanborn's show. You remember the brother that was the guitar player on David Sanborn's show? He used to rehearse in that same studio, and we be in one room cutting tracks, and he'd be in there cutting, working on his music.
Yeah. Now you dropped was your first record in 1983? Was that the first one?
Yeah, and it wasn't really a record that was like for sale. It's like I did all the recording myself at home, and I used to be on 125th Street all the time. So when Fantastic came out with the record, Can I Get a Soul Clap fresh out the pack? I'm walking down 125th Street and I was like, yo, wait a minute. This the same guy that has the record label that put out Theodore on them record. So I went in there, I said, yo, if I bring you some music, could you press it for me? He was like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So I went home, I did my recording and whatnot. I came back like a week later and I gave him a tape. And he pressed the tape on a plate for me, acetate. So, that was my first pressing on wax.
Okay, that's the one I heard that mentioned reparations, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Now, years later, or sometime after that, I guess you did have opportunity to work with some labels. And you told a story once about how a label offered you a contract and you took it home. What happened in that story there?
Oh, yeah. We had a record called Move Something, featuring this MC named Sport G. And, I did all the beats and the samples and the bass lines. And my boys from East New York played all like the keyboards, and we had Sport Rhyme. It was a hip house record. And my man Eddie said, yo, man, I know this label that will be interested. And we played it for them. They loved it. They're like, we want to do something. So the guy hits me with a contract like mad thick. So I said, I took it from him. I got on the train at I think 28th Street. And by the time I got to 34th Street, I was like, I can't do nothing with this, man. I'm reading the contract by page 2. This guy's like, he wants ownership of everything I do and continue throughout the universe to the end of time, and all this kind of wording was put in there. And the next day I went back and I threw the contract on his desk, and I was like, yo, man, I can't sign nothing like this, man. I can't work with you like that. He's like, oh, you don't like that contract? I was like, nah. Then he goes over, he opens up his desk drawer, and he pulls out one sheet of paper for a one song deal, and that's it. I was like, see, he's trying to get over from the jump.
Yeah, and so that contract didn't say they own your likeness for eternity, right?
Nah, all that said was, we're hiring you to do one song. You deliver this song, and that's the end of that. That's all we asking.
Right. So now here's a question. Like, you were able to read the contract and you saw some clouds in it and you saw flaws in the contract. A lot of artists in the industry, everyone has an attorney to sign a major deal like that, I would assume, but everybody talks about they got ripped off. If you have an attorney read the contract, how do so many artists get ripped off?
I would read it myself, even if you haven't. It's great to have the attorney read over it, but if you're thinking, man, and you can read, you can see these people telling you what they're going to do right there on paper.
Yeah.
You really don't need nobody to decipher that for you. All you have to do is read. It's right there in black and white what they want to do. Wow. I look at all these, I'm hearing all these stories coming out of Bad Boy. I'm like, yo, man, y'all was just like happy to just, for him to slide you some cash. And you never had that much cash before. It's like, why should I read it? You ain't even think about reading the contract. You're like, I'm getting paid. And it's like, yo, you signing a piece of paper, you haven't even read the damn thing.
Right, but you are supposed to have an entertainment attorney. How does the entertainment attorney read it and you still get ripped off?
Well, a lot of times a lot of entertainment attorneys are in cahoots with the record label. And they both trying to flim-flam you because they both gonna make money out of the deal. You're not, but they are.
Yeah, I remember the first time I met Chuck D years ago, he was talking about how he needed a second attorney to keep an eye on the first one and consider getting a third one to keep an eye on the first two. So
yeah, Richard Pryor said that. He said the same thing.
Interesting.
In the 70s, he said that. So that's what it, amazed me to see all these guys getting ripped off when this has been happening ever since we've been recording music in the 20s. Everybody's been getting shaken down with these kind of deals, and it's like, yo, these guys are telling you what they're going to do up front. This is nothing that should come to a surprise to you. We gave you a Cadillac, this and that, and these guys is like they never had nothing before, so they jump in the car, they drive down the street, you got $10,000 shoved in your pocket. Meanwhile, this dude owns all your publishing. You just turned over all your publishing, all your marketing, everything else that's involved. The only way you can make money now is to be a slave and be out there every night grinding, doing shows.
And then at the end of all of that, you end up owing money.
and then you owe money, yeah, because they run the record company like a bank, which I never understood, because me, my whole thing was I set up a studio in my house, so me and my fellas could work and put our demos together there. So we would take it to a real studio after that, and we wouldn't have to spend that much money because we just walk in there and just re-record it. We know everything that's going to be done. We're not there scratching our heads like, oh, what should we put in here? Or who should say what there? We already know. We already did the song. But, these record companies like, oh, you got to record under our studio, and they make you pay for that. And they're not really telling you got to pay for that. That's coming out of, that's coming out of what we're going to pay you. That's going to be to pay your studio tab. That's why cats like Prince and all them had their own studios. And when they stepped to a record company, it was basically just for distribution. It's like, here's the finished product. All you got to do is get it to the people now. Because I can't get it to the masses like you can.
Got it. So now, Jux888 in the chat wants you to talk a little bit about Whiz Kid.
Oh, Whiz Kid was one of my closest friends, man. And I met Whiz in 1982. Because there was a party at Mount Vernon High School, and it was Whiz Kid, RG Scott, Grandmaster Caz and JDL, the Treacherous Three, Busy B and AJ Show, and the Crash Crew. And so when we get there, Whiz is on the turntables, right? Now, first Caz was on there, and he was cutting stuff up, man. Caz was cool, man. He was cutting some joints. Then he gets the headphones to Whiz. Whiz gets on, and there's a guy next to me from a math class. And he's like, every time Whiz would do something, he's like, yo, Eric, can you do that? Can you do that? And I'm sitting there because, everybody looking at me like I'm the hot DJ. But Whiz is up there doing stuff nobody's ever heard before. And I was just sinking in my seat, man. I was like, nah, man, I can't do that. I can't do that. So that night, some girls we knew hooked up with Wiz's brother, Mike. And my man Tyrone T-Bone, who I mentioned before, his cousin was going out with Mike. And so Mike hooked up with Tyrone. So Tyrone was like, yo, man, you want to meet Whiz Kid? I was like, nah, man, you can't be serious, man. He's like, yo, let's go to his house right now. So after school, we jumped on the train. We went down to Burke Avenue, got off, and Whiz lived in the buildings over there. And we go up to the apartment, and Tyrone and Mike's like, yo, man, we're going to be in the living room talking, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you go in the room with Whiz? So I went in the room, and Whiz was practicing. And he had a mixer that the fader was broken. So he was using the levels up and down to go back and forth. And you couldn't tell the difference, man. And he had his records on the other side of the room, and him and his brother had twin beds. So every time he wanted to change the beat, he had to jump over the two twin beds, grab the records out the crate, and jump back over and put it on. And he was doing it in time.
Wow.
It was amazing to see that, man. And he did that for about an hour. Then he turns around when he finishes and says, my name's Harold, man.
Yeah.
What's up?
That's funny.
Yeah. And so, he took us to the T Connection that night because he was the house DJ at the T. So, Wiz in there doing this thing. And Melly Mel and all them was coming through. All these dudes was coming through, getting on the mic and whatnot. Wiz was cutting things up. So, we used to go by his house, and Mike said, yo, Wiz got some new tapes last night. And he would go in the room and sneak Wiz tapes out from the T Connection and give it to me. Wow. And I'd run home, make copies, and bring it back the next day so he wouldn't know that they was missing.
Wow.
And then Wiz hooked up with his wife, Betty, and they got married. And I lost contact because Betty was in the service, and she was stationed out in Seattle, so they moved to Seattle. So I lost contact with him. And then years later, in the late 80s, I'm on the train coming home from work, and I'm standing there, and I look down, and there's a dude sitting in front of me. I said, yo, ain't you Whiz Kid? He's like, yeah. I was like, wow. I said, I haven't seen you in years, man. So me and him hooked up, and we used to ride the train home together. We used to have lunch together, and at night we used to do beats together. He had his drum machine and this and that, and he was working with an MC that I was working with, and we were both doing tracks for the same songs and this and that. See who had the best tracks, and Wiz was the man. He was the man.
Yeah. Now, was he involved with Soul Sonic or the Soul Sonic Force, or that was Glow? Because I know they did something together.
Yeah, Wiz Wiz was down with Bam and them, and he told me he got down with Bam and them because Bam came in the T Connection one night and was in the booth with Wiz, and Wiz was playing records that Bam didn't have. So Bam was like, yo, man, we need to have this dude down with us, man. So he became a Zulu with Bam and them after that. And, you know, when Bam and them got on Tommy Boy Records and then Planet Rock, Wiz got a deal with Tommy Boy, and he did Play That Beat with Globe. And, you know, that was their smash. You know, that, you know,
Big record.
Globe's rhymes on there are ridiculous on that record. You know, Globe really did some work on that joint.
Yeah, I can hear it in my head now.
Yeah, punk, rock, new wave, soul, pop music, salsa, rock and roll, calypso, reggae, rhythm and blues, master mix those #1 tunes, play that favorite song of mine, and accept my call on the request line. DJ will play it just for you, and you got to get down and show you know how to. Don't. You know, Wiz did the music and everything on that.
Wow, that's the record. Now, Jux888 in the chat is saying or asking you to talk about his style of DJing, like he's driving a steering wheel.
Oh, Wiz. When they had the first, like, you know, they have these DMC championships, Wiz was the first one to win one of those.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was the first DJ to win one of them when they started having them big time battles like that. Then after that, they made Wiz the judge. You know, so he used to go every year and judge the contest and everything. Then he got a record deal. You know, since he lived in Seattle, he got a record deal with Nasty Mix Records. You know, the same label that Sir Mix-a-Lot was on. And, you know, they funded Wiz, you know, they paid for Wiz everything, man. They sent him equipment and everything, man. He had recording equipment that they bought for him. And he did a remake of Play That Beat in 1989. And I went to the studio with him. And, you know, this is when sampling and all that stuff was first starting. So Wiz went down with a stack of records like this, and he sampled the kick drum. He sampled the snare. He sampled the hi-hats from different records, and that's how he built his beat on that joint.
Wow.
And then he did his scratching. You know, his cuts was ridiculous, man. When he used to scratch, he used to hold, his hands were so big, he would grab the turntable like at the top and hold the record like on an angle. So the record was like off of the turntable at the top, and he would scratch like that. You know, he was ill.
Okay, I never saw this up close. So you telling us some stories here. Now Djaytiger, he runs a channel that we're on now. Him and I did a show together. He was spinning and I was hosting, and we had you come through and do a set. You were spinning that night as a guest DJ. He want to say salute to you. He's shouting you out right now.
Peace to you, Djaytiger, man. I had a ball that night. Anytime I get on some wheels and play some records, man, it's always good.
Yeah. Now, you lived in Mount Vernon, so you know a lot of the artists that came out of there. Yonkers is not too far. Did you cross paths with Mary J. Blige by chance?
Well, my neighbor was Jeff Red. Jeff lived right across the street from me.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So, you know, used to get up in the morning, come outside, say, yo, what up, Jeff? Yo, what up, E? You know, that's like that.
Wow.
You know, so I knew Jeff, you know, when he first got, you know, first started making money. Matter of fact, I even DJ'd a party when I was like 15, 16 years old, and Jeff was singing then. You know, he came out and did some songs. This is long before he had a record deal or anything like that.
And now, was Jeff Red the one that brought Mary J. Blige to Puffy?
Yeah, Jeff was the one that put Mary out there. Yeah.
Okay. Because she did a song on the soundtrack of Strictly Business. That was the first record. So Jeff, you remind me.
I'm not sure because I really didn't follow Mary J. Blige like that. And, you know, because I knew Jeff had a position, I think, at MCA Records, where he was like a vice president or something like that. And I know he was bringing in talent. And, you know, the first time I saw Mary J. Blige, she performed on Soul Train, and Don Cornelius was talking to her. And that's the first thing she said. I want to thank Jeff Red because, you know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Jeff. And I was like, wow, man, go ahead, Jeff, do your thing, man.
Yeah. So now Jux888 in the chat said that Mary lived in Slowbomb houses.
Yeah, Slow Bombs.
Slowbomb, okay.
Yeah, Slow Bombs was kind of an ill project because it's like kind of like in a valley, and it's like there's a street that runs next to it that's like above the projects, and you can look down and see the parking lot and everything. So there's like only one way in, one way out. And if, you know, it's like, you know, a lot of projects, if they don't know you what you doing here? You know, and that's where she grew up.
Wow. And DMX is from the same area too, right?
Yeah, DMX is from School Street.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
I know his uncle. I know his uncle very well, and I was surprised. I didn't even know that my man Ray was his uncle until DMX passed, and then you know, and I started seeing photos of the funeral, and I was like, wow, what's Ray doing there? And then somebody told me, so yo, that's Ray's nephew. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
That's interesting. Now, do you know anything about the beef between him and K Solo?
No, I don't know about his beef with K Solo. You know, and I only spoke to DMX one time on the phone. There was a brother named MC LeBrew. He used to be down with the Herculoids, with Cool Herc and them back in the day. And me and him was cool at that, you know, years ago. I haven't spoke to LeBrew in a long time, but he called me up one night and he's like, yo, man, I got this dude here, man, DMX, man, he needs some beats. And I was like, word? He said, yo, I'll put him on the phone. And DMX gets on the phone, and I could tell he was high, man. And, you know, he's talking all crazy, and I was like, yo, man, you know who this is? I was like, yo, you sound like the dude to be making them records and whatnot. And then he gets off the phone, and I was like, yo, man, put LeBrew back on. And I was like, yo, LeBrew, man, your man sound kind of high, man. I don't think we can talk business right now. And it never went no further than that. That's the only time I had contact with him.
That's funny. Now, what about the Locks, Jada kissing them guys? Weren't they from that area too?
Yeah, the Locks is from Yonkers. I really don't know them because they're younger than us.
Okay.
You know, that's a whole nother era.
That's a whole, exactly. A whole nother school of people right there.
Yeah.
Now, Brother Eric J, in the last 4 minutes we got left, talk about your YouTube channel, because you got a YouTube channel and you posted some interesting things on the YouTube channel. So talk to us about the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I got my YouTube channel. It's if you do a search on YouTube, punch in 718 XAD, and that's my channel, 718 XAD. And I posted some old school tapes, you know, some clips of some old school tapes. I got Grand Wizard Theater on Fantastic at the T Connection. You know, one of the first parties they did as a group. I got some Grandmaster Flash on there from the T Connection. I got Powwow and Globe and them up there. I got some old tapes that, you know, of me and my crew. I got jams that I got out now that, you know, that I've worked on, that, you know, I posted videos up to my stuff as well. I got a lot of go-go stuff up there because I love go-go music. I go to DC as much as possible just to hear the bands, man. I got to be up in there to hear it live. It ain't nothing like going to a go-go and feeling that live, man. It's, you know, that's a party, yo. And, you know, the musicians down there are on point like a mug. You know, I got a lot of friends that are in bands in DC. So, you know, when I go down there, I pull out my phone, I record them as they play, and, you know, I post up the videos. And I got some stuff for some of the bands I've worked with over the years and some original material and things like that.
All right, so I put that in the chat, 718 XAD on YouTube. Now, Brother Eric J, I was at your house one time, and a brother gave me a CD. It was Hutch Hutch. I forgot what it was. It was somebody spinning breaks. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and that's the guy on there that was asking the questions about Whiz. That's him.
Oh, so shout out to him. I still got that CD he gave me. That's a question I was going to ask you who that is. So it's Jux 888 that gave me that CD.
Yeah, his name is Waverly.
Oh, so salute to him. I still got that. I'm still listening to that disc. In fact, if I'm not on camera, I will get up and show you right now. I still got that disc, man, and I still play that. So and I'm glad he's watching this. I want to thank him because I didn't know who that was. He gave me the CD, and I said, man, when I talk to Eric J, I gotta ask him who this brother was. Gave me the disc. And now I know. So now I can thank the brother. Thank you, man. So go ahead. What are you saying?
Yeah, because me and Waverly are tape collectors from way back, man. We've been collecting tapes since, you know, we could get our hands on them back in the day, you know, making copies, you know, and, you know, cat like me, I was blessed to have Whiz Kid as my friend. And, you know, I used to get tapes fresh out of the decks at the T Connection and make copies. So it wasn't, you know, I'm crystal clear, you know, and you know, Waverly converted a whole lot of a lot of cassettes onto CD, and you know, he sells them. You know, you could, you know, if you run into him like at Katona Park or at a block party in the Bronx during the summer, you know, he might have something on him that you could buy. But
Wow,
like
dope.
you got a CD with Hutch Hutch. Hutch Hutch is one of the first MCs from way back too, man. I mean,
Wow.
Hutch, he was down with a DJ in Mount Vernon named Playboy Snapper. And then he was down with Bambaataa. He was one of the Soul Sonic Force first MCs. You
Yeah,
know,
he
so
said
you got some gold in your hand right there, man.
and I know that. That's why I'm thanking the brother. It's 23 Park. He just put that in the chat, and that's exactly what it was. Hutch Hutch. So yeah, Jux 888. Thank you, man. That's a piece of history right there. I'm grateful for that. So now here's the thing. I need to hook up with you and him so I can get some more of those CDs. That's history right there.
Yeah, man. So you know, you got my digits, man. Just connect with me, and I'll pass his number on to you, and you can talk to him directly.
Oh man, if you would, I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate
no
that.
doubt.
Yeah, but we at the end of the hour, man. I could tell you we can go for 3 hours and not even realize that time is going by, you know?
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
Eric J, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank everybody in the chat that chimed in, asked some really good questions. And we got to do this again, brother.
No doubt, man. I'm always around, man. God willing, you know. So you can, you hit me up whenever you feel like it, man.
I will, man. I will definitely do that, and we're gonna do this again. We got to do a part 2, man.
Sounds good, man.
All right, brother Eric J. Thank you for joining us, and everybody go to 718XAD on YouTube and check out some of this historical material that brother Eric J posts online. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man.
Thank you. And as they say, like and subscribe too. You know,
that's correct. That's correct.
Like
yeah. That's the narrative now. Like and subscribe. So like and subscribe. That's 718XAD. Check out brother Eric J. Eric J, thank you again, brother. Peace to you, and we'll talk again soon, all right?
No doubt, man. Peace.
All right, brother. Peace.